Welcome to Politricks, the show where we strip away the talking points, bypass the spin, and dive straight into the tough conversations about politics that everyone else is trying to avoid. Politics isn't a game, but it's often played like one. On this show, we expose the strategies, question the motives, and break down how the decisions made in back rooms actually impact your daily life. We aren't here to echo party lines or give anyone a free pass. We're here to ask the uncomfortable questions, challenge the conventional wisdom, and have raw, honest debates with the people shaping our world. If you are tired of the usual political theater and ready for some unfiltered truth, you are in the right place. Let's get into it.
Yeah, it's a good way to start our weekend or start our week off, if you want to say Monday, Tuesday. We're here 6 o'clock. This is Politricks. My name is Kendall Stevenson. I'm the host. My co-host, that's my brother, man, Mr. Yates, Mr. Ronald Yates. Always, I start this off by looking for something to be grateful for. I'm grateful to have this platform. I'm grateful to have the family, friends that I have around me. I'm grateful that things are starting to move in a positive forward direction. So again, like I say, you guys, every time you wake up in the morning, you should always look for something to be grateful for. All right, let me bring my boy in, Mr. Ronald Yates, and boom. Hey, what's happening, my brother? How you, man? Ashe.
What's up, brother? I'm well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing well. You know, that award, it's still on my mind. You know, I didn't give you your proper, so here you go for that award, that a community award that you did receive. Here you go.
Thank you, brother. Much appreciated.
You know, right? That's from us to you, as far as the network is concerned. Saying thank you, and to let you know that you are appreciated. We had a couple of things on the table that before we went off the air, we had some things that we want to talk about. That young man that you were talking about, Mr. Knowles, it started to be a good conversation. Talk to me.
Well, Nolan Wells, actually, young man, from all accounts, well-mannered young man, good family, went on the 4th of July outing to a barrier island off Mississippi. And at the end of the night, his friends returned, but Nolan Wells did not. I think 2 days later, his body was recovered. He was left on the island. And the story that his friends are telling really don't make a whole lot of sense. He went there with them. I guess there was some kind of activity on the island, a party or something like that. Now, typically, if you go with people, especially if you're going to an island and you need a boat to get there, if we're going to go together, we're going to come back together. Well, the story is they think he went, he met some young lady and remained behind with her. There's no confirmation from a young lady. No one has come forward to say, yes, Nolan Wells was with me. All of the young men that he traveled with, all of them have basically hired attorneys so that they cannot be questioned by the police outside the presence of their attorneys. So it's a difficult time for the family. Their child goes off normal 4th of July activity and doesn't come back home. So I would like to express my condolences to his parents, to family and friends, and the community at large where he lives. It is something that happens to Black people, brown people in this country way too often. So I'm hoping that there is a good outcome that gives some solace to the family.
So do you think there was something nefarious that went down there with his buddies, his friends? Because that's kind of what it sounds like. If all of them were together and were out on this little island, in order to come back, you'd be coming back on a boat. Now, if it wasn't his buddies that did something, he went off with some young lady, was it racism involved, maybe?
Well, what has come out is that this young man, I think he was 18, 19 years old. We all know that teenagers don't go anywhere without their phone. They go to the bathroom and take the phone with them.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow the phone got back to his parents, not the boy, but the parent. But the phone got back to the parents. And some of the text messaging between he and his friends had been deleted. Clearly, Nolan Wells didn't delete this information or these text messages. Someone who was with him, someone on board that boat, more than likely, erased the messages. So if there's nothing going on, if this was just a situation where a mistake was made, why lawyering up immediately and why erase messages off his phone? Of course, the family now has hired Ben Crump, and he is, of course, working with the internet or the phone company to retrieve these messages so, we can find out exactly what information was passed back and forth between Nolan and these group of boys that he went with. So, yeah, I would say something, I don't know if I use the word nefarious, I'd say something is strange as it relates to this young man.
Because you said they were all buddies, right? I mean, there wasn't any animosity or fighting or anything between them, arguing or anything like that, was it?
Well, so far as we know, there was not. These are apparently friends from school, from the community. Apparently, they spend a lot of time together. So, the thing is, what occurred on the island, we do not yet know. Could there have been a disagreement, altercation? That's possible. There was some footage that showed what could have been an altercation. The young man who came forward said, no, that wasn't Nolan. That was actually me that was involved in that dispute.
Right.
So we don't know. It's unfortunate, for all involved. We just have to kind of take a wait and see approach and see what develops as it relates to this young man's death.
Not that it should matter, but it was a group of young African American men, or
no,
or was it a mixture?
No, Nolan Wells was the only black kid on the boat. I don't know how many black or brown people were on the island itself, but on that boat, Nolan Wells was the only black person.
Now, this island, is it like exclusive or something, or I wonder if this is an island that's frequently visited by African Americans, and or if it's not frequently visited, then why? Maybe there is some racial stuff going on there.
Well, it's a barrier island. I don't believe it's an inhabited island. I think that in this part of Mississippi, kids go there to hang out. But I do not believe it's inhabited. But from what we know thus far, it is a place that the kids in the community go to hang out. And they were hanging out that, July 4th, they chose to go to this particular island. I think it's called Horn Island.
Well, again, our condolences here out to the family and for your loss. It's a terrible tragedy. Terrible tragedy. I can't speak English anymore. It's terrible, right? All right. We were also looking at some things I wanted to bring into the picture. Trump. Of course, Trump always has to be in the picture. Right? Why not? The show is Politics, which we get to talk about the uncomfortable conversations people don't want to talk about. Now, when they talk about these tariffs, I don't see where we've gained anything by these tariffs. And now we have to actually give refunds back. And when I say we, I mean this administration. So far, they've had to pay, I believe it was $81 billion that they had to pay back already, and just because of these tariffs. Now, these things are not doing us any good. To me, these tariffs are not doing any good for us. Now, tariffs may have been a good tool that people utilized at one time in order to keep a country in line, if you want to say. Let's keep it all fair, equal, fair exchange, no robbery. But when Trump came along and the way he utilized it, it's not a fair exchange. And yes, it is a robbery. Because the people that are getting robbed the most are us, the taxpayers.
Well, I don't know of an administration in U.S. history that has used tariffs in the same manner that Trump has. Trump's mentality has always been to always be on the attack, to never take a backward step, to never apologize, and to intimidate. And I think that he believed that these tariffs would intimidate other countries. Now, he talked about China ripping off the United States because of the trade imbalance. Well, let's go back. When Richard Nixon was president, Nixon is credited with opening up China. China was a backwards agrarian society until Nixon came and said, we're going to open up China. And they started foreign investment in China. Well, the Chinese are not stupid. They sat back and they watched and they learned. And now they're beating the Americans and the other Western former colonial powers at their own game. So now we're saying that China is a threat. How? Let's be realistic. Back when Reagan was president, we started hearing about outsourcing. Instead of jobs coming into this country, jobs were leaving. Where were these jobs going? Places like India, places like Vietnam, places like China. How many products do we have in this country that don't come from China? How many are not produced in China? Trump talks about China all the time.
Not many. Between China, Korea, or one of the other countries. No. What do we make here? What do we mass produce here?
Trump talks about China all the time, but his watches, China, his ties, China. So for you to say that China is such an enemy, that China is ripping us off, why is so much of your wealth coming from doing business with China? So, I mean, the Chinese didn't do anything wrong, right? America, of course, gave these jobs away in order to increase profits for corporations. It hurt the American pay. Well, it didn't really lower the prices because now everything has to be imported, right? So did it lower the price? And when you add the tariffs on top of that, which we pay the tariffs, not the exporter, but the people who make the purchases are going to pay the cost of the tariff. So it's only hurting the American economy, which has been sluggish for years, right? So, these tariffs, I guess he thought that the other countries would back down. And, the same thing was his thoughts on Iran. If we threaten Iran, Iran will back down, right, and get in line. Well, no, that's not happening anymore. So now we're back to a situation where we're now, again, firing missiles into Iran, and Iran is retaliating by firing missiles into American bases and, the neighboring Arab countries. Now, the question we should be asking is, how are they doing this? Last year, 2025, Trump launched an attack on what he said was Iran's nuclear sites. Trump said that he obliterated these sites, that he set back the Iranian nuclear capabilities years, decades, right? So if it was set back a year ago, why did we invade in June, right? A year later, if their capabilities had been obliterated. Then he said the war was over within the first hour. We destroyed their missiles. We wiped out a good portion of their military. Well, how are these people launching missiles, bringing down U.S. aircraft if we've obliterated everything?
We didn't obliterate. We had that conversation before because, I think one of us was thought that the war would be over with like quickly, and I was like, no, I don't think so. And here we are, months and months later, and we're still at war, if you want to call it. Even though this administration now doesn't utilize, they don't want to utilize the word war, but that's where we're at. And it's going to come down. I know we got this physical war, but it's going to come down to an economic. Who can stand it the most? Who can afford it? Who can afford to
Well,
lose the most?
the reality is nobody can.
Mhm.
America is about $40 trillion in debt, right? So with the debt, with Americans losing jobs, you have to keep in mind that when Trump came to office, he and Elon Musk, took a literal chainsaw to American workers, right? Government workers, you know, thousands of people would drop from the work rolls.
You
And
mean the
then you
African
have
American people, right? Like especially the women, the African American women.
women, black women, yes, but people in general, right,
Mm.
lost their jobs and continue to lose their jobs. If you look around here in Northeast Pennsylvania, you see factories are closing down, right? We're not opening new businesses. The businesses we are opening are things like restaurants and stores, which how many employees are you going to add with a restaurant or a store? How does that boost the economy, right? So all these actions, the war, um, cutting of jobs, the tax cut that helped billionaires and trillionaires like Elon Musk, all of that has a negative effect on the overall economy. And the problem is that people say, no one tells Trump. Why do you have to tell this man? This man that says, I'm a stable genius. This man that says, I was the biggest builder and developer in New York City. I'm a businessman. This guy that was on Apprentice, appearing to know what the hell he's talking about. Why do you have to tell him simple things like the tariffs are hurting? The American
Because
people are suffering.
listen, that man don't know nothing about suffering. He's never known anything about suffering, and the people that are around him, they don't know anything about the suffering that American people do because they haven't had to deal with it. They're spoiled people with a lot of money, and they money make the world go round. So it's been their world. That's it, their world. And they want to control it the way that they want, and they utilize money to do so. With people, they've been doing that back since the Rockefellers, man. The DuPonts, on and on and on with people with in power with money. See, I would love to take money out of politics, but I know that's going to be an impossibility. We were talking one time ago. I think I was telling you that I'm starting to become more of a democratic socialist, if you want to say. I got like three titles. I'm still a little conservative because I still have some conservative views, but I have a democratic and socialist views as well. And I think this country needs to start picking up on some of that because people don't understand what socialism actually is and what it actually does for your country, especially when you combine it with democracy. People get the Social Security check. They don't realize that that's socialism.
Mhm,
A lot of these programs that people rely on are socialism. I just think
mhm.
we need to take it a little further when we start talking about things like universal health care. I don't think anybody on this planet with the technology and all of this money that we have today, I don't think we should have anybody in need. We should have
Well,
people running to the doctor and can't go to the doctor because they don't have insurance.
well,
That's
the fact of
ridiculous.
the matter is, that um, Obamacare was allowed to expire just weeks ago, and all those who had been utilizing Obamacare um, for their health coverage, they've lost that. Of course, they had the opportunity to pay for health care, but the cost is skyrocketed. Under Obamacare, the premiums were kept affordable for working class and poor people so that they could have insurance and see a doctor. Now that those subsidies have been removed, by the Trump administration, costs have skyrocketed. So many people have decided to just do away with their health care. So what you're going to see is a rising number of people, an increasing number of people who do not have health coverage. Now, I mean, being from New York, I'm sure you can remember back in the 80s and 90s when you went to an emergency room and there might be 500 people sitting there waiting to see a doctor. A lot of these people were either underinsured or uninsured. But, hospitals have to provide some means of care. They have to at least stabilize you. Whereas your doctor's office, if you don't have insurance, they don't have to see you. People now are going to go to these hospitals. They don't have a choice. So what we're going to have is overcrowding in hospitals. And in some of these, let me just say, many of these red states, many of these rural hospitals have closed down. So now a hospital may have been 10 minutes away. Now the closest hospital may be 2 hours away. So what we're creating is an absolute mess.
Yeah, and it's been created and it's been going on for a while. But the people of now, let's say this time, people that were born in the 90s or people that were born in the early 2000s, the environment that they're growing up in. They don't know any other environment. You got people that grew up under Trump. That's all they know is Trump or Obama or that's all they know is president, as being the president. That's it. So the people of the day, the younger, especially the younger people, they grew up without having a union. They don't know what it is to live with a union and to have the benefits of a union. You and I understand that. They took care of us. Like I always said, my union, along with Verizon, they took care of me and they bought me a nice house. And nowadays, it's hard as hell to buy a house, especially if you're young. But these are the conditions that they grow up in. They don't know any better. In other words, they don't know any different.
Well, you know what? They don't know when America was great either, but they still support it. Now, you ask people, when was America great? Some of them will tell you it was the 1950s. Well, what was going on in the 1950s? This was the height of segregation. This was Jim Crow. This was lynchings. This was when women had no rights in this country, right? So they thought that was greatness. Those people that were around during that time, because the economy was doing relatively well. They were building the interstate system, so jobs were plentiful. But since that time, when has America been great? For the people, of our generation, and those subsequent generations after us, what do they know about American greatness? For these young people, the world they're growing up in a world where we have these unprovoked, these unilateral wars, right? These endless wars. We have a situation we have now, climate change or global warming, if you will. We have dwindling resources. So where's the greatness? And how do we achieve greatness in a country that is drowning in debt and nothing positive is happening for the American people? We like to tell ourselves that they are, but they're not.
Well, we live in what do they call it? It's all about the dollar. It's only about the money. And the people that run this country, that's pretty much all they care about, man. They pollute the ocean. And they don't care about the human life. They don't care about what's going to happen afterwards. This is a cheap way for them to get rid of waste. And then we got administration who does, what do? They roll back. All these restrictions, they roll them back or throw them away out in the garbage. You had, even with the Iran situation, Obama had a perfect plan. I don't care what people say. There is no such thing as a perfect plan. Let me reiterate, okay? But it was a damn good one. And it was one that would have lasted another 25 years. Trump threw it in the garbage, said it was garbage. And now we're right back to trying to make this deal with Iran. And I'm sure about now Trump wished that he had never thrown that in the garbage, okay? because
Well,
I didn't see a point for us going to war. It's like we become the conquerors now. We might as well just be Vikings and go from country to country and shit, because that's kind of what it seems like we want to do.
well, we've always been that, right? I mean, this is nothing new. You know, you and I can remember the Vietnam War. And Dr. King said, I believe it was 1967, he gave a speech at Riverside Church. And he said that America, even before entering the war in Vietnam, was paying 80% of France's war costs to fight the Vietnamese. Now, why would America be spending billions of dollars for the French to fight a war against one of their colonies? So America was basically spoiling to get into this war. So we used this fabricated attack on American naval vessel in the Gulf of Tonkin to get into this war. And, you know, like any other war, war is profitable for the term I'm looking for is the one used by Eisenhower. And he talked about the military industrial complex. That's the term I'm looking for. And the dangers of it. Well, we didn't really hear what Eisenhower was saying. So many distractions in this country. While you're looking the other way, the military industrial complex is, of course, cutting or putting pressure on Congress to cut funding for things like education, for things like healthcare. And that money goes to the defense budget so that now we can drop more bombs on Iran, in Syria, in Yemen, right? In Libya. We can drop more bombs and we can take more resources. And that's what it amounts to. And, you know, for the American people, you know,
but you see, that's the ideology. Right. That's the ideology of white supremacy. What do they call it? Christian nationalists. That's the way that they think. They really do. I mean, like I said, people say what they want, but the way that they've carried out, and we're talking year after year after year, hundreds of years, decade after decade, century after century, these people have been given an opportunity to act right, and they don't. They would rather enslave people and look in the Bible and say, yeah, well, this is the reason why we can do so, or change it to make it so that they can do so. We had people in Iran that put the Shah in Iran, okay? Because prior to the Shah being there, it was a democratic society. We put the Shah in there. He did all kind of crazy stuff, killing his own people, all kind of stuff. Then we turn around and say, well, you know, the Shah is a bad guy, so we got to take him out. And now his son, who's worse than he was, he's in charge. So this mess that we're
not
in,
the Shah. The Shah was put in by the U.S. government, yes. But what you're talking about is the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah, his son, has taken over. And they say he is more, I hate to use the term radical, than his father. You know, that's a term we like to use to refer to other people, that they're radicals. Well, you know, on July 7th, a man left his home in Houston, Texas, on what he thought would be a normal day. Well, some ICE agents in unmarked cars tried to pull him over. Unmarked cars, people wearing masks. Who are these people? He doesn't know. There's a confrontation where the ICE officials or agents who tried to stop him said he weaponized the car, that he tried to run down an ICE agent. They opened fire and they killed Lorenzo Salgado Araujo. Again, my condolences to his family.
Yeah.
Yesterday in the state of Maine, ICE is out on one of their roundup missions. And just like with Mr. Araujo in Houston, they thought that a person that was wanted, they thought they spotted this person. They attempted to pull over a 26-year-old Colombian immigrant in Maine. Again, unmarked vehicles. How do you know who's pursuing you? Well, the story's pretty consistent. For ICE, this guy also weaponized his vehicle, so they had to shoot and kill him too. This is the same story with Renee Good in Minnesota, weaponized the vehicle. And
they love to use that
officer.
word. They love to use that word.
Right. Just like they talk about radicalizing and weaponizing. These are all the things that we've been doing for centuries. And now we want to blame other people and say that they are the radicals. In this country, in some of these Muslim countries, and let me say this again, in some Muslim countries, women are permitted to have abortions. In this country, America, that says that it is the last bastion of democracy, abortion has basically been outlawed. And we talk about we're a democracy. I'd like to ask some democratic, or not, some constitutional scholars, when did this country become a democracy? What year? Are we a democracy right now? If we're a democracy, how in the hell is the president going to go on TV tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern time to talk about election interference? Under this most recent bill that he's pushing, the Save America Act, what they don't tell you about the Save America Act is that all of the states are going to be required to turn over their voter rolls and voter information
to the federal government.
And that every 30 days, the federal government would be obliged to basically purge the voter rolls. That's why so many states are fighting this. This is clearly a constitutional violation, when in the Constitution it says that voting is administered by the several states, not by the federal government. And because Trump has not been able to control it, he wants now to push the Save America Act, even not signing a housing act, a housing bill, when people in this country are living in the streets.
And we have a big homeless problem lately. It seems to be growing and growing and growing. But those people, the big states that are homeless, are in blue states. So this administration feels it doesn't have to do anything. I mean, when do we get to a country that's about blue or red and I don't. It's look, like I told you last week, man, or the week before. I'm really not understanding this world. Everybody wants to talk about peace, but nobody wants to have peace, because all I see them want to do is go to war. They just want to fight each other and just kill each other. And I see another group of people who just want to be in control of other people. That's all.
I don't know if people want to be at war, right? I know that Israel wants to be at war, because Israel, Netanyahu and the hardliners in Israel have territorial designs on larger swaths of land in what's called the Middle East. So they want to be at war. America
is that about the false Jews? What was that in the Bible where they talked about the false Jews? Do you know that?
Yeah, that's in John, the 8th chapter, the book of John, 8th chapter, starting at about verse 39. But
well, that's what these people are. They're not Jews. They're false Jews. They come from Europe. They come from Russia. They come from Yugoslavia. They come from those countries. They don't come from the Middle East. They never did.
And some of the older Jewish, or should I say, these folks that were transplants from Europe, some of them have admitted that they are not originally from that area. If you go back and you look at Golda Meir, who was the first female prime minister of Israel, she said when she came to Israel, she carried a Palestinian passport. So if Israel existed, why did you have a Palestinian passport? So the fact of the matter is, the narrative that many hardliners in Israel like to carry is that when they came to this region in the Middle East, there was a land without people for a people without a land. In other words, they're saying there were no people there when they arrived. And essentially, if you look at it in this country, when Columbus arrived, right, there were people here. But what do we know of those people? These are the same people that were here for centuries. And now we're telling these people, oh, you can't cross these artificial barriers we call borders nowadays. Mm-hmm. You came, so if I come to your house, point a gun at you and your family and put you in the basement and tell you the rest of the house is mine, and then I tell you your family and friends who may come to visit, no, you're not allowed to enter here because I now own the house, and now you are violating the terms of my agreement. You're a trespasser. You can't come here anymore. Is that legal?
Now, see, that would go along with the argument here, with that same argument here, especially a lot of younger white people here in this country, some of the older ones feel that we as African Americans, we shouldn't receive any reparations. But I heard a good analogy. My man said, look, so if you come in my house or you come by me and you steal my mother's car, right? And then you take my mother's car and give it to your son, is that still my mother's car? He said, yeah. And if he gives it to his son, is that still my mother's car because you stole it? So that's kind of what they did in this land. They came here and they stole it and they changed it. And then they said it's mine, but it's not really yours because you stole it. It still belongs to the original people here.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
so
they said
see what they're trying to do at the reservations, right? They're having issues at the reservations too. Where are you going to deport them to?
Right, Native Americans. So for people that call themselves white in this country, because they're really not white. White was just something that was made up by the British, right, after Bacon's Rebellion. But for those people that call themselves white, they wanted to assimilate Black, brown, and other people to a certain point, right? You can take part in our holidays because that's economic. We're going to make a lot of money off you. But in terms of benefits that were given to people that call themselves white, no, you can't have that. So, there was an argument going back and forth on social media about Black people celebrating the 4th of July. Should we or shouldn't we? So I'd like to ask people.
Was that my fault? Was that my fault? Because no, for weeks we have been talking about that, and then
right.
Okay, right on.
No, but it comes up pretty much every year, and so I'd like to ask people. So in Nazi Germany, every year they had the Nuremberg rallies. How many Jewish people went to the Nuremberg rallies to celebrate? They didn't, because they weren't invited. They would have gotten killed if they showed up there. April 20th, 1889 is Adolf Hitler's birthday. It was celebrated as a holiday in Germany. How many Jewish people celebrated Hitler's birthday? People empathize with them and say, well, I could understand you not wanting to take part in these Nazi holidays because your people are being rounded up, put onto trains and taken to concentration camps, death camps. So you can sympathize with them and understand why they would not celebrate. Black folks put into the holds of ships, spread throughout the entire planet, right? Made to speak English, made to worship a certain way, made to conduct themselves a certain way. But if we don't want to celebrate a holiday, oh, you're wrong. You're not being patriotic. You're not you're not celebrating America's birth. Well, America's birth for many people meant death for the Native Americans and death to millions of Black people. So no, we don't want to celebrate that.
And the only people who were free at that particular time was what, white, if you want to use the term white landowners. People had to have money in order to make those kind of decisions, because the only people that were able to vote, were white landowners. So when they said we the people, they're not talking about we the people. Black people were only considered 3/5 of a man at the time. And when they talk about the natives, they talk about them as savages. They put it in writing. Women had no say about anything.
So when did we become a democracy? When was it? They tell us this country was founded as a democracy, but only one class of people were allowed to vote. Is that a democracy? No. And even after that, white men were given the right to vote. Is that a democracy?
No.
And even today, after the Citizens United decision that said as much money as you want, as corporations want, can be poured into local, state, and national elections. Is that a democracy?
No, because you know what they did with the corporations when that whole thing was going around is that the people were complaining because they're saying you're a corporation, you should be paying X, Y, and Z. They took it to court, and court said, no, you know what, you're people too. So now you can contribute whatever you want. It's kind of how that nonsense came around. But as far as celebrating holidays, I try not to celebrate any holiday that's not. It doesn't have anything to do with me. I just put it like that. I'll celebrate Kwanzaa. I celebrate Kwanzaa. I go through the whole, we light the candle. We do the whole nine in my house here. I make sure I try to pay some sort of tribute to my ancestors. But a lot of these other holidays, Thanksgiving, I can't celebrate that. And 4th of July, I can't do that. A lot of these holidays I can't, and if somebody want to tell me I'm not a patriot, I tell you what, you pick up your arms and you and I, we can go out here and show the world how much patriotic we are, okay? Because I'm willing to join the service and do what I got to do. And a lot of these people that talk that nonsense, they're sitting at home eating popcorn. They're not really to get out there to be a patriot.
Well, you know what? We have a very distorted view of patriotism in this country, right? For Donald Trump, who got multiple deferments so he wouldn't have to go fight in Vietnam, I believe it was for bone spurs. Donald Trump is considered to be a patriot, right? The people who amassed in Washington on January 5th, who on January 6th stormed the Capitol, those people are called patriots. The people who go out in the street who are protesting ICE and their heavy-handed tactics, those people now are called lunatics. They're called left-wing radicals. Well, this country was allegedly founded on protest. We protested the tax on UST. Right. But now we turn that narrative upside down. So the people who never served in the military, all they do is go buy a flag and put it out in front of their house or in the back of a pickup truck. They're now the patriots. Not the people who fought and died for this country, but the people who wave a flag.
And I think they think the bigger the flag, the more patriotic they are. Because I've seen some of these flags that are absolutely ridiculous. Okay, and I pledge allegiance to God. I pledge allegiance to my family. I don't pledge allegiance to no cloth, some flag waving in the air. I can't do that. I believe in God and country and family. Not a flag, man. And if I want to be patriotic, or we want to talk about that flag, you had slavery under that flag. You had Jim Crow under the same damn flag. You had segregation under the same damn flag. Okay? So.
Right. right?
Mhm.
So, again, it's a very distorted view of what is patriotic, right? And I think that in this country, people are so desperate, right, for something, something to hold on to, that they went and elected Trump, figuring that Trump would set everything right, right? That all of the gains that they believe came about under Obama, that he would take them back. Because there is a belief among certain segments of our society that Obama gave incentives to Black people, that Obama, right, opened up the storehouse to Black America, and we benefited so much under the Obama administration. So now Trump has come into office and he's taking it all back. He's tried for the last 10 years to get rid of Obamacare, even though his constituents rely on Obamacare for their health care. They have nothing else.
See, but that's what racism would do to you. That's what racism will do to you. It will make you vote against your own interests, man. As long as you don't put a Black woman or a woman, in this case, in her case, if you don't put her in office, as long as we don't put her in office, we'll be good to go. I wonder what this administration would have been like if Kamala would have won. I wonder if we had been at war or anything like that, or we would have been in any kind of this situation. I think not, because I think a lot of this stuff this man is doing, he's uncivilized, he's unhinged, he's a barbarian, and he's a savage, a warmonger. And I don't think she was any of that. I think she was actually better qualified.
I don't know if we would have been at war with Iran. And I say that because Israel determines our foreign policy. It's not determined in Washington. If you think about it, we went to war with Iraq. Iraq was a U.S. ally. Saddam Hussein was put in power by the U.S. government. We provided him with weapons, right? Training for his people. All of a sudden, the same man that was an asset who went to war with Iran for America, now he became a madman. Now we had to bomb his country. And then we left him in office. Well, a couple of years later, we decided to go back. Why? After 2003, and after the collapse or the destruction of the World Trade Center, now we have to go back and attack Iraq, who had nothing to do with it. There has been no credible evidence ever to show that Saddam Hussein was in any way involved in the so-called attack on the World Trade Center. So why did we attack?
He wanted to have a unified dollar, a unified African dollar. As much as people want to say the negative and bad things about him, I don't think there is no perfect person. But one of the things that he was trying to do was bring Africa as one, make it one, a Pan-African.
Well, he wanted to have his own gold-backed currency, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the problems that America has, and there's nothing we can do about it, people are going away from the dollar, right? China and Russia no longer use the dollar as their currency of exchange. So many other countries, South Africa and other countries, right, are now shifting to another form of currency, right? I forget the name of it right now, but this is what's happening because the value of the dollar, there is no value in terms of the strength of the dollar. Exactly. So if you look at the ranking of the world's currency, the strongest currencies right now in what's called the Middle East, the American dollar ranks somewhere around 10th. We were always number 2 after the British pound. We've dropped down to 10 and continue to fall. So a lot of people realize What are we utilizing the dollar for when it's not backed by anything? So Muammar Gaddafi, he invested $70 billion into Africa so that Africa could strengthen its economy and have its own gold-backed, currency. But of course, America couldn't allow that, so we went and killed Colonel Gaddafi. And a lot
America,
of these,
the French, the Germans, what do they call those union? The whole union people, man. That whole European Union nonsense, man. The way they're still back and forth in Africa. I was listening to the president of Ghana the other day, and he's pretty much to cut it to short. Stay the hell out of my country. Stop coming in here robbing us, stealing from us, then turn around and you're giving us peanuts to $1. But you're taking billions out of our country. Well, this is our money. We want to stay the hell out. So now the French, the European, all those people, United States, they're looking at him as he's the bad guy now. Because these Europeans with that mentality, they did it back in the day to this country, right? They came in, take. They did it to each other, man. They constantly stayed at war with each other. One wanted to take from the other, take, conquer. So that's where we're at now.
Well, the problem is that America, under the Trump administration, is not falling in line with European, expansionist interest, right? For lack of a better term. You talk about Burkina Faso, right? Which was Dahomey at one point. So, all of these countries, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Mali, all of these have tons of resources that the French, the English, the Germans, and others have relied on to enrich their countries and have used that money, right, to support their population. Well, of course, Captain Traore chased the French out. The French have been chased out of Mali, right? The English chased out of Ghana. Well, normally the former colonial powers would get together with the United States and they would draw up their long-term plan for reconquering these lands. Well, now America is not playing the game. Trump is talking about grabbing a portion of Europe, Greenland, for the United States, right? Listen, we don't take from each other. We take from them. That has been the mantra since the time of Constantine, when he called all the European, all the Christianity together in Europe for the Council of Nicaea, when they got together under the ban of Christianity. After that, what happened? War. There were the Crusades. From the Crusades, wars in Europe, wars in Northern Africa, just war spreading across the continent for control, right?
War.
And here we are again, right? There's a scripture that says there's nothing new under the sun. So in 1914, we had World War I. They said that was the war to end all wars because it was such a horrible war, trench warfare. Less than 20 years later, the Europeans were at it again, right? Not necessarily World War II. The Spanish Revolution started, the Spanish Civil War started in 1935. Then you see the Japanese on the rise. And by 1939, Hitler invades Poland and we're back, plunge into darkness again, World War II. So, all of these things that happened under Adolf Hitler and the rise of fascism, you see the same thing happening in this country. And you see people choosing sides, right? Europe has always relied on America for its defense. And now Europe is saying, we got to go it alone. For NATO had a mandate to protect the NATO allies. How much money is the U.S. giving toward the defense of Ukraine?
You know, I'm gonna tell you something. Trump was over there complaining about how much money we give, and then when you broke it down to the stats, we don't give as much as everybody else. There's countries that gives a lot more than we do.
We're not giving anything right now to Ukraine. Ukraine is managing to fight on without U.S. assistance, but we're not giving them anything, right? In fact, we're taking from Ukraine. Right now, most of the farmland in Ukraine is owned by American corporations. So when this war is over and these people need to rebuild their cities and towns, they got to take out loans. These people that want to plant, well, now the American companies own your farmland. So you're going to have to buy the food that you normally would produce yourself. Now it's going to have an American logo on it, and they're going to sell it back to you at much higher prices. That's business in America.
That's business in America. All right, brother. That was a good session this week. I'm glad we got an opportunity to talk about this and talk about that. Let's see what's happening next week, man, because it just seems like we got some crazy times ahead of us, and they're coming at us really fast, man. Really fast. We're just really fast. Let's just hope that these idiots that's running the world don't decide to blow it up, because that's what it seems like we're headed to. They just want to self-destruct. That's what it sounds like. All right, so we're gonna end the show. I'm gonna say, my man, I know what you're gonna say. Go ahead, do you?
Well, I want to thank everybody who tunes in, on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for supporting the show. And I hope to see you again next Tuesday. And with that, I will say, Hotep.
So my name is Kendall Stevenson. Of course, I am the host of the show. I don't know why I say that. Of course, it just comes out that way. And you just got finished listening to my brother Yates, and I generally say peace or ashe. Now, I would like to give a shout out to a young man. His name is Johnny Lewis. Not the Johnny Lewis, but yeah, the brother's nice like that. Just want to give a shout out to him and to a young lady named Bunny. And thank you guys for tuning in. We truly appreciate it, and we do appreciate you subscribing. So again, my name is Kendall Stevenson, and we are OUT.
Peace.